the room, the crystal catching the light of the chandelier in a way that made everything feel holy. But instead of a blessing, he looked right through me and said, "Some kids make you proud. Others just take up space." The table burst into laughter. My brother smirked into his wine glass. My mother looked down at her plate, studying her green beans like they held the secrets of the universe. And me? I just smiled back at the man who had spent my whole life pretending I was invisible. Good thing I just got my own place 3,000 miles away. I said. The room went silent. Forks froze mid-air. They thought that was the moment everything changed. They had no idea what I had already discovered or what I was about to expose, to understand why I walked out of that house and never looked back. I have to take you back to the beginning. My name is Julianne. I am 26 years old and I work as a civil engineer in Seattle. My job is to make sure bridges do not collapse and skyscrapers do not sway in the wind. I'm good at it because I spent my entire childhood studying structural integrity in a house that was always one bad day away from falling apart. From the outside, our place in Ohio looked perfect. Neighbors waved from driveways, kids biked along the street, and every fall, the maple trees lit up the block like a postcard. Inside, though, everything revolved around my father Richard's definition of worth. And that definition began and ended with my brother Caleb. Caleb was the golden child long before either of us understood what that meant. His football trophies lined the hallway like a glowing shrine, polished every Sunday by my mother. My certificates lived in drawers stacked under old instruction manuals for appliances we did not even own anymore. Dad used to clap Caleb on the back so hard the sound filled the house. When I came home with a science award, he would say, "That is nice, Julianne. Do not make your brother feel bad." A lifetime of small cuts delivered with a smile. My mother was not cruel, just scared of conflict. She would fold napkins when Dad raised his voice, stir pots that did not need stirring, and whisper, "Just let it go, sweetheart." Her silence hurt more than anything he said because it taught me early that my feelings took up too much space. The basement became my refuge. It smelled like metal and dust and safety. While upstairs echoed with ESPN highlights and Caleb's victories, downstairs belonged to me. I fixed broken radios, rebuilt cheap keyboards, and soldered wires until my fingertips tingled. Machines did not care about favorites. They only cared if you listened. Nana Rose was the only one who ever listened to me that way. She would visit on Saturdays with warm pastries and warmer eyes, asking about whatever project cluttered my workbench. "You see the world differently, Julianne," she would say. "Do not let anyone tell you that is wrong." She said it softly, like she knew my house was not a place where softness lasted long. By the time I turned 18, I had perfected the art of being quiet and useful, my dad's preferred combination. When I was accepted to a top engineering program across the country, he barely looked up from the newspaper. "That far?" he muttered. "Figure it out yourself." I did. I worked nights, saved every dollar, and boarded a plane with a backpack and a scholarship letter that no one had congratulated me for. I used to think distance would make him see me. But distance does not fix what someone refuses to look at. And that Thanksgiving night when he lifted his glass and said I took up space, I finally understood something. He would never see me at all. But someone else was about to. For a moment after my father's toast, the room felt tilted like gravity had shifted just enough to expose every crack we had been pretending was not there. Caleb snorted into his wine. His kids whispered, not understanding the words but recognizing the joke. My mother's eyes stayed glued to her plate, her fork tracing the same line over and over. It was the kind of silence that does not protect anyone. It only tells you exactly where you stand. I should have cried. I should have argued. That is what they expected. Instead, something inside me clicked into place. Quiet, steady, and undeniable. I lifted my glass and smiled. A real smile, not the practice one I had spent years perfecting for their comfort. Good thing I just got my own place 3,000 miles away. I said, letting each word land with the softness of a blade. Then I added, "Do not worry. You will never have to make space for me again." Forks froze mid-air. A chair squeaked. Even the kids stopped whispering. My father's jaw tightened, not because he felt guilty, but because for the first time in his life, I had stepped outside the script he had written for me. Caleb blinked, confused, like he could not decide whether to laugh or defend the hierarchy that had always benefited him. I set my napkin down, pushed my chair back, and stood. "Thanks for dinner," I said. Calm, Controlled, my mother whispered my name, barely audible, as if calling me too loudly would draw fire toward herself. But I was not walking away to make a scene. I was walking away because I finally saw the truth of that table. Who sat where, who mattered, and who never would. Outside, the air was cold enough to sting. The house looked exactly the same as it had my entire childhood. But suddenly it felt smaller, almost fragile. I could still hear their muffled voices inside. First confusion, then annoyance, then dismissal, the usual pattern. They would tell themselves I was dramatic, ungrateful, sensitive. But none of them followed me out the door. As I drove through the empty streets, memories unfurled one after another. Caleb blowing out candles on a cake that spelled our star while my own birthday passed with a plain supermarket dessert. Dad pacing the sidelines of every game but forgetting the date of my robotics competition. Mom smoothing tension instead of standing up for me. The pattern had always been there. I had simply stopped pretending it might change. By the time I reached the hotel where I was staying, something inside me had shifted from hurt to clarity. Leaving that table was not the ending. It was the beginning of a boundary they never expected. Me to draw. I pulled out my phone and opened a message thread I had not touched in months, the one with my grandmother. I typed, "I am in town. Can I see you tomorrow?" Her reply came within minutes, warm and immediate. "Of course, sweetheart." For the first time that night, I let myself breathe. As I lay in the dark, replaying Dad's words about taking up space, I felt something surprising rise in my chest. Not anger. Not sorrow. Resolve. They wanted to believe I was nothing but empty space. They were about to learn exactly what I could build with it. I met Nana Rose the next morning at a small diner. She loved the kind with chipped mugs and the smell of fresh biscuits drifting through the air. She waved the moment I stepped in, her silver hair catching the light like something gentle in a world that rarely was. When I slid into the booth, she did not ask what happened. She just reached across the table, took my hand, and said, "You look tired, Julianne. Not in your face. In your spirit." I swallowed hard. She had always seen through me with painful accuracy. We talked for hours about my work, about Seattle, about the apartment I had finally made into a home. She asked for pictures, and when she saw the long walnut dining table I had chosen, she smiled softly. "Equal seats," she said. "Good girl only." Then did she ask, "So what did Richard say this time?" I repeated Dad's toast. Her eyes closed, and for a long moment she did not speak. When she finally did, her voice shook. "You deserve better than that since the day you were born." Hearing that from her hit deeper than the insult itself. When I returned to Seattle the next week, the city gray mist wrapped around me like an exhale. My apartment felt different. Not just a refuge, but a declaration. I hung new curtains, rearranged furniture, and bought fresh flowers. I built a life, one small intentional detail at a time. At work, opportunities grew. I was trusted with projects that required precision and long nights, and I delivered. I did not brag about it. I did not send updates home hoping for a reaction that would never come. I simply let the work speak on my behalf. Seattle was not a place I escaped to. It was a place I built myself into. During the holidays, I planned a Christmas dinner for the people who actually showed up for me. My neighbor who fixed my heater after a storm. My old professor who still sent encouraging emails. A colleague who once drove me to urgent care at 2 a.m. They were a strange, beautiful mix of personalities. But when they sat at my long walnut table, all at the same height, all treated equally, I felt something loosen in my chest. I did not know then that the photos from that night, warm lights, warm faces, me laughing at the head of my own table, would travel far beyond Seattle. Far enough to reach Ohio. Far enough to rattle the very people who had insisted I took up too much space. The call came 3 days after Christmas, right as I was cleaning up the last of the dishes. My phone buzzed with a number I had not seen in months. For a second, I considered letting it ring out, but something, instinct maybe, told me to answer. My father did not even say hello, so he snapped. "The whole town is talking about you." I leaned against the counter, towel in hand. "About me?" "Those pictures," he hissed. "Your little Christmas gathering. People are saying you have replaced your real family. Your cousin posted some sentimental nonsense about how Julianne finally built her own table. Do you have any idea how that makes?" U.S. look, there it was. Not concern. Not curiosity. Image. I kept my voice calm. I did not post anything. You did not have to, he shot back. Those photos are everywhere. Your mother cannot even go to the store without someone asking what happened between us. That sounds like a question you should have answered years ago, I said quietly. The line went silent for a beat. Heavy. Charged. Then he said, low and controlled. You embarrassed us. I almost laughed. Embarrassed them by having a warm dinner with people who cared enough to show up. By smiling in a photo. By not sitting at the kids' table forever. Pause for a moment. I want to know what you guys think. Was I wrong for posting photos of my new life, knowing it might upset them? Or was my dad just trying to control the narrative? Tell me in the comments. Before I could respond, I heard another voice in the background. A softer one. Older. Julianne, sweetheart. Nana Rose. My throat tightened. I am here. I saw the photos, she said, her voice trembling with something that was not anger. It looked beautiful, honey. Dad cut in sharply. Mom, stay out of this. No, she said. Firm and clear. You have controlled this family long enough. It was like hearing glass crack. She continued, speaking directly to me. You built something gentle, something safe. That is nothing to be ashamed of. I closed my eyes. Thank you. My father started pacing. His footsteps were loud through the speaker. You think you can just run off, make a show of independence, and act like we are the villains? I opened my eyes. Dad, you lifted a glass and told a room full of people that I take up space. That was a joke. It was not. I said softly, and you know it. He inhaled sharply, and suddenly his tone shifted. Less bark, more bite. You're coming home for New Year's Eve. We need to fix this. There was a time those words would have made me feel obligated. Guilty. Not now. I am not coming back to that house unless we sit at the same table. Equal seats. No head of the table. No hierarchy. If you want a conversation, that is the condition. Another long silence. Then he said, fine, I did not expect that. The next day, my parents arrived in Seattle. The knock on my door felt like a pulse. Steady. Foreboding. I opened it to see the two people who had shaped my childhood in every painful way. My mother avoiding eye contact. My father trying to hide. The way his gaze flicked around my apartment. Searching for something to criticize. Nice place, he said. As if the words tasted strange, I did not give him time to twist the moment. Dinner is ready. The long walnut table stretched across the room, lit by soft lamps and the glow of the city beyond the windows. 3 chairs. All identical. No head seat. My father noticed immediately. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the back of the chair that would have been the side seat in his own house. He said nothing. He sat. My mother complimented the meal, her voice thin. My father ate in silence, his jaw moving like he was grinding more than food. He glanced at the photos on the wall. Me with colleagues, me with friends, me hiking. But none with him. I did not apologize for that. Halfway through dinner, he finally spoke. So you are doing well. I set my fork down. I am. And you did not think to tell us? I met his eyes. You have never wanted to hear it. He looked like he was about to argue, but Nana Rose's voice from the phone call must have still been echoing in his head, because instead of exploding, he slumped back in his chair and exhaled. Maybe we did not do everything right. The understatement of a lifetime. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Julianne, we never meant to make you feel less. I did not soften. Not yet. Intentions do not erase impact. Dad's face tightened. We protected Caleb. He needed more. He needed more because you handed everything to him, I said. And I learned to survive alone. His mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, he looked small. I did not attack. I did not shout. I simply told the truth. The truth I had been carrying like a stone in my chest for years. You told people I take up space, I said. But I built a life 3,000 miles away from you. I built my own table, my own family, my own peace. My father flinched. Not dramatically, just a slight twitch in the jaw. A break in armor. Then he whispered something I never expected to hear. I didn't know how to love you the way you needed. My mother reached across the table, hesitant, trembling. Can we try, even if it is slow? I leaned back, the city lights behind them flickering. Like a heartbeat. I am not coming home, I said. But you are welcome to visit if you sit as equals. If you show up the way you did not before. My father nodded once. Stiff, but sincere. We will try. It was not forgiveness. It was not a perfect ending. But it was the first crack in a wall I had spent my entire life standing outside of. When they left, the door clicked shut behind them with a softness that did not sting. This time I walked to the balcony, letting the cold air rush over my skin, and realized something. I had not just stood up for myself at that Thanksgiving table. I had rewritten the rules. And for the first time, my father had followed them. When New Year's morning broke over Seattle, the city felt washed clean, like someone had turned the volume down on the world. My apartment was quiet again, no tense footsteps. No forced small talk, no unsaid accusations hanging in the air. Just stillness. A kind I had never been allowed to have in that old Ohio house. My parents' visit had not solved everything. It had not erased the years I spent shrinking myself to fit the space they offered. But something had shifted. Subtle. Almost fragile. A beginning, not a fix. Later that week, Nana Rose called. Her voice was warm, relieved. "He told me what happened," she said. He did not yell. He did not blame. He listened. I leaned against the window, watching fog move over the rooftops. "I do not know what comes next. You do not have to," she said. "You just have to keep choosing yourself." Choosing myself looked like small things. Cooking dinner at my own pace, inviting friends over, walking through the city without feeling like I owed my existence to anyone. I found a quiet joy in rebuilding intentionally, slowly, without apology. At work, someone congratulated me on a project I had led, and I let the compliment land without brushing it off. I realized how many years I had rehearsed humility just to avoid being resented at home. I was not running anymore. I was not hiding in a basement waiting for permission to shine. One evening, as I set a single plate on my long table, I paused. That table had started as a symbol, a rebellion, a boundary. Now it was something gentler. A promise that whatever my family chose to do or not do, I had built a place where I belonged. Where I took up space fully, finally, and without fear. New. Year's night settled over the bay like a soft curtain, and for the first time in years, I felt completely steady. Not because my family had changed, but because I finally had. I stepped onto the balcony, the cold air brushing my face, and whispered the truth I had fought so hard to learn. Some kids make their parents proud. Others make themselves free. If you have ever had to rebuild your own table, tell me in the comments. And if this story stayed with you, subscribe. There is more coming and you won't want to miss